Hello everyone, I'm Amir and you're watching the Saddest Amir channel. This video is about 1 week road trip to Moscow. In fact, this is the first part of the journey. In this episode, you'll see a full tour of a Khrushchev-era apartment with the preserved Soviet-style interior. After that, we'll head to Kolomenskoye, a beautiful park and museum reserve in Moscow, known for its unique churches, scenic landscapes, and rich history. Although many visitors focus on Moscow's most famous landmarks, Kolomenskoye remains one of the city's lesser-known gems. So, let's go! Our journey starts on the M4 toll highway. We are traveling from Krasnodar, a city in the south of Russia where I live. The road to Moscow takes about 20 hours. So, of course, we'll need 2 days to complete the trip. Let's hit the road. Look at those beautiful thunderclouds in the distance. Aren't they beautiful? There is something special about long-distance travel. When we spend hours on the road, we slowly leave our everyday routines behind. The usual worries, deadlines, and small problems begin to feel less important. Mile after mile, the world around us changes, and somehow our thoughts change too. A long journey gives us something that modern life rarely offers: time. Time to think, time to observe, time to simply look out of the window and watch fields, forests, villages, and cities pass by. Traveling long distances also reminds us how large the world really is. We often spend most of our lives in the same places, following the same routes. But when we drive hundreds of kilometers, we discover new landscapes, new people, and new stories. Every region has its own character, and every road leads somewhere unexpected. Sometimes the destination is not even the most important part. The journey itself becomes an adventure. A beautiful sunset, a dramatic sky, a quiet roadside cafe, or a view you've never seen before can become the moments you remember most. Perhaps that is why long-distance travel feels so rewarding. It gives us freedom, perspective, and a chance to reconnect with the world around us. And as the road stretches out ahead, we realize that every journey is not only a trip to a new place, but also a small journey within ourselves. Now I'd like to tell you a little about the road we're traveling on. What? Yes, even an ordinary highway like the M4 has its own fascinating history. Back in 1700, Tsar Peter the Great ordered the construction of a road connecting Moscow and Voronezh through the town of Yelets. The route was almost 430 kilometers long. Cities and fortresses along the road had checkpoints where officials recorded travelers checked their documents and stamped their travel permits. Merchants also had to pay taxes on the goods they carried. The road itself was quite simple by modern standards. It was a dirt track lined with trees, and milestone makers were placed along the route to show the distance traveled by riders and horse-drawn carriages. About every 20 versts, travelers could change horses, rest at an inn, or stop at a postal station. When Emperor Alexander I visited Voronezh in 1813, he noted that the road should be paved just as many roads were in Germany. However, that idea was never fully realized. For many years, the route remained unpaved, and during bad weather, it often turned into a sea of mud. Only in the second half of the 1950s did Soviet engineers design a modern highway connecting Moscow, Voronezh, and Rostov-on-Don. Construction took place between 1959 and 1967, and the new road finally received an asphalt surface. Today the Don stretches for more than 1,500 kilometers. It features divided carriageways, convenient interchanges, and a much higher quality road surface. What began as a simple route for a horse-drawn carriage has become one of Russia's highways. So, we've arrived in Novomoskovsk. We've been on the road since 6 a.m. and it's now 10 p.m. It's already dark outside, so the interior shots of this Khrushchyovka were actually filmed the following morning. This is a Khrushchyovka, a type of apartment building that became very common throughout the Soviet Union during the 1950s and 1960s. Let's go inside and take a look. These are shots from this evening. This is the entrance. This is the hallway. This is one of the bedrooms. Just look at how low the ceilings are. I can reach them if I jump. This is the bathroom. And this is the toilet. It's so small. And this is the kitchen. What I love about this apartment is that it has many small details that make it feel cozy. There is something surprisingly cozy about a Khrushchevka apartment. At first glance, it may seem small and even outdated. The rooms are compact, the ceilings are low, and everything feels very simple compared to modern housing. But that simplicity is exactly where its charm comes from. In a place like this, nothing feels excessive. Every corner has a purpose, every space feels lived in. It's not about luxury or design trends, it's about warmth and everyday life. These apartments often hold a kind of quiet history. You can feel that many people have lived here before, shared meals, conversations, and ordinary moments that slowly built a sense of home. And maybe that is why Khrushchevki feels so cozy. They are not perfect, but they are real. And sometimes real life feels more comforting than anything new or polished. This is another bedroom where I'll actually be staying. Now it's time to sleep. Good night. Good morning, everyone. Today is a nice sunny day, perfect for a walk in the park. But first, we still have about 4 to 5 hours of driving ahead of us to reach Moscow. So, let's go! This is the entrance hall of the Khrushchevka. Now we've arrived in Moscow. This is a shopping mall near Kolomenskoye. We're in Kolomenskoye. Hooray! This is the palace of Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich. In the 1660s, Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich ordered the construction of a new royal palace here in Kolomenskoye. During the 1670s, the Tsar and his family regularly stayed at this residence. Meetings of the Boyar Duma were held here, along with councils with government officials, diplomatic receptions, and military reviews. The palace became an architectural masterpiece and was admired by many rulers who came after him. One of its most frequent visitors was Tsar Peter the Great, who often came here with his mother Tsarina Natalia. By 1767, exactly 100 years after construction had begun, the palace had fallen into disrepair. Empress Catherine the Great ordered it to be dismantled, but first she instructed architects to create detailed measurements and drawings of the entire complex. Thanks to these valuable records, the palace could later be reconstructed. In the 1990s, the Moscow government decided to rebuild the palace of Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich. Construction began in June 2007 and was completed in August 2010. Today visitors can once again see this remarkable palace and experience a glimpse of Russia's royal past. I really love this park. It has a unique atmosphere that makes it feel calm and peaceful. Here is a map of Kolomenskoye. Now I'd like to tell you a little about the history of Kolomenskoye. According to the historian Mikhail Tikhomirov, the name of the village may come from the Finno-Ugric word Kolomishe, meaning a place of mass burial. Another theory suggests that Kolomenskoye was founded by people fleeing in the Mongol invasion of the city of Kolomna, who named their new settlement after their former home. The first written mention of Kolomenskoye dates back to 1339 and can be found in the will of Grand Prince Ivan Kalita. In the early 17th century, construction of the Tsar's estate began here. The complex included a wooden palace, the stone church of Our Lady of Kazan, and numerous service buildings. Peter the Great spent part of his childhood in Kolomenskoye. He first visited the residence in 1675 when he was only 3 years old. The royal family frequently came here, although they usually stayed for only short periods. In 1924, the architect and restoration specialist Pyotr Baranovsky proposed creating an open-air museum of wooden architecture in Kolomenskoye. Thanks to his efforts, several historic landmarks were restored. Before the 1980 Summer Olympics, the city authorities ordered a large-scale restoration of the entire Kolomenskoye architectural complex. Today, Kolomenskoye is one of Moscow's most fascinating historical parks, when centuries of Russian history can still be seen and felt. We suddenly came across these gods. There are some really beautiful apple orchards here. Why is it important to preserve historic buildings? When we look at an old church, a traditional house, or a centuries-old palace, we are seeing much more than bricks, wood, and stone. These buildings are silent witnesses to history. They have survived wars, political changes, and the passing of generations. Historic buildings help us understand where we came from. Without them, history becomes just words in books. But when we stand inside an old building or walk through a historic place, the past suddenly feels real. We can imagine the people who lived there, worked there, and experienced important moments of their lives there. Preserving historic architecture is also a way of protecting a city's identity. Modern buildings can often look similar, no matter where you are in the world. Historic structures, however, tell unique stories about local culture, traditions, and craftsmanship. They give a place its character and make it memorable. There is also something inspiring about seeing a building that has stood for hundreds of years. It reminds us that some things can outlast our own lifetimes. We become a small part of a much longer story that began before us and will continue after us. Perhaps that is why preserving historic buildings is so important. By protecting them, we are not only saving old walls and roofs, we are preserving memories, culture, and the connection between the past, the present, and the future. This is Golosov Ravine. For centuries, this ravine, which divides Kolomenskoye into two parts, has been surrounded by mysterious legends. People who lived here long ago believed that it was a gateway to the underworld and a place where supernatural forces could be found. One of the most famous legends tells of a strange green mist. According to the story, anyone who entered this mist could travel through time. The first recorded account dates back to 1621. According to historical documents, a group of warriors from the Golden Horde suddenly appeared near the royal residence. During questioning, they claimed that they belonged to the army of Khan David. While fleeing from Russian troops, they had entered the ravine, which was covered by a mysterious green fog. They believed only a few minutes had passed. However, there was one problem. The events they described had taken place about 50 years earlier, and Khan David had already been dead for decades. For the warriors, only a short time had passed, but in the outside world, half a century had gone by. Another story appeared in a newspaper in 1832. It told of two peasants who walked through the ravine during a strange green fog. When they finally returned home, they discovered that more than 20 years had passed, and their families had long believed them to be dead. Today, fortunately, there are no reports of mysterious disappearances in Golosov Ravine. But if you ever visit this place and see a strange green beast, you might want to think twice before walking into it. This is the Moscow River. This is a light installation designed to look like white dandelions. Everything you see here is part of Kolomenskoye. Sometimes a place is more than just a location on a map. When you walk through Kolomenskoye, it feels like different layers of time exist in one space. Ancient churches, old legends, quiet nature, and modern city life all come together here in a strange but beautiful harmony. You can move from a royal palace to a peaceful riverbank in just a few minutes, and it feels like you're traveling not only through space but through history itself. And maybe that's the real magic of places like this. They remind us that the present is always connected to the past, and every step we take is part of something much bigger. This is the main square of Kolomenskoye. These are the front gates. This is the Church of the Ascension, one of the greatest masterpieces of Russian architecture. The church was built between 1528 and 1532 to celebrate the birth of the long-awaited heir to the throne, the future Tsar Ivan the Terrible. This is the church of the cousin icon of the Mother of God. These are the Savior Gates. We loved this park so much that we came back to explore another part of it. So, the footage you're about to see was filmed on a different day. When you stand in front of a place like this, it's impossible not to think about time. This church has witnessed centuries of history. Empires have risen and fallen, rulers have come and gone, and countless generations have passed through these grounds. Yet it still stands here almost unchanged. It reminds us that while our own lives are short, we are connected to something much larger. Every generation leaves behind a small part of its story, and together the stories become history. Look at these two lionesses guarding the building. Now we're in the Museum of Wooden Architecture section of Kolomenskoye. Kolomenskoye is home to Moscow's only Museum of Wooden Architecture. Here you can see unique historic buildings that were brought here from scientific expeditions to the Russian North and Siberia. The idea of creating an open-air museum of wooden architecture came to the architect and restoration specialist Pyotr Baranovsky after his journeys through the Russian North in the 1920s. Many of the wooden buildings he discovered were in poor condition and some were close to being lost forever. Moving them to Moscow helped preserve these remarkable examples of traditional Russian architecture, allowing future generations to experience them. This is the Church of St. George the Great Martyr and Victorious. It was built in 1685 on the banks of the Yorga River, funded by parishioners. In 2008, the church, which had been located in an abandoned village, was carefully dismantled and transported to Moscow for preservation. This is the passage tower of the Nikolo-Kurelsky Monastery. In the 1920s, the monastery was closed and a large shipbuilding plant was built on its territory. Most of the wooden monastery structures were lost, but thanks to the architect and restorer Pyotr Baranovsky, one structure was saved, this passage tower. This is the tower of the Bratsk Fortress. During the construction of the Bratsk Reservoir in the 1950s and 1960s, the area where the fortress once stood was planned to be flooded. Because of this, the question arose of how to preserve its remaining structures. One of the towers was moved to the Angarsk Village Museum in the Irkutsk region, while the other was transported to Kolomenskoye in Moscow, where it can still be seen today as a rare reminder of the lost fortress. This beautiful structure is a festival venue. What actually makes a place feel cozy. It's interesting that coziness is not something you can simply measure or design with strict rules. It's more of a feeling, something you notice the moment you enter space. A cozy place is often not about size or luxury. In fact, some of the most comfortable places are small, simple, and even a bit imperfect. What matters is the atmosphere. Warm, light, natural materials, small personal details, and the sense that life is happening there. Human presence is also very important. A place feels cozy when it carries traces of people, stories in the walls, objects that were used and loved, spaces that feel lived in rather than staged. Even old buildings like those in Kolomenskoye or Khrushchyovka apartments can feel surprisingly warm because they hold memories of everyday life. Nature can also add to coziness. Trees, rivers, quiet paths, and open air help create a feeling of calm. When architecture and nature exist together, the result often feels balanced and peaceful. But maybe the most important part of coziness is emotional. It's the feeling of safety and familiarity. It's when you can slow down, breathe, and simply exist without pressure. So, coziness is not just about how a place looks. It's about how it makes you feel inside, and sometimes the simplest places create the strongest sense of home. It was a great walk today, but now it's time to head back to the apartment we rented in Moscow. So, just a small dinner. So, it was a great day. We explored many new places, saw beautiful scenery, took a look inside the traditional Khrushchyovka apartment, and spent time in the wonderful Kolomenskoye Park. But this is not the end of our grand trip to Moscow. The next part is coming next week. In it, we'll visit Vedenha, one of the most impressive Soviet-era exhibition complexes and one of Moscow's most beautiful landmarks. I hope to see you in the next adventure. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, to subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. I really love to read your thoughts. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!